Hi all, let's talk about Azure Storage Accounts and its properties. This is useful for a lot of exams because a lot of questions are around this. So basic things to remember before we deep dive into each type. Azure Storage always stores multiple copies of your data. Redundancies in the storage account ensures availability and durability of the resources. There are few factors to determine the redundancy option, which we are going to cover more in detail graphically, but the key factor to determine redundancy options are how your data is applicated in the primary region. If you are doing it within a region, how your data is applicated. Whether your data is replicated to a secondary region and where that region is. Is it geographically distant to the primary region so that you can save your data for the region failure? And third option is whether your application requires read access to the replicated data in the secondary region. So these three factors, just keep it in mind. I'll come to these when I show you different storage options. Let's get into it. So first redundancy option is called local redundancy storage. To understand this, look at this diagram. There is a primary region. We are talking about single region here. And within a region, we are talking about single data center. And in this single data center, we see that the data is copied into 3 copies. Copy 1, copy 2, copy 3. So this is called local redundancy storage because we are in the same data center. We are in a single data center and the data is copied locally in that data center. So this is called local redundancy storage. So what it provides is the durability of 11 nines and availability for read request is 99.9% at least, and same for write access. And you can see number of copies. There are 3 copies maintained within a single region. So you can imagine what if the data center itself goes down, then you're out of luck. So that's why we need to look for other options. So let's talk about next one, which is zone redundant storage. So in zone redundant storage, we will still be in the primary region, but the replication, instead of having it in the single data center, it will be done in different availability zones and different data center like this. So if you see, we are still talking about 3 copies of data, but instead of keeping that in the same single data center, we have 3 different data centers in 3 availability zones. So since the data is kept in different zones, that's why it is called zone redundant storage. Now, the good benefit of this is, let's say availability zone 1 data center is down. So you still have 2 data centers up. So that gives you higher availability of the data. So the parameters for zone redundant storage, we are getting a durability of 12 nines. Availability of read and write request is 99.9%. And number of copies, here we are talking about 3 copies across separate availability zone, but within a single region. So we are still in the primary region. So if the full region is down, then we are out of luck. But there are very less chances. That's why you see still very high durability and availability. But there are options for multi-region also, which we are going to cover next. Before that, this is a comparison of a single region option, which we just saw, local redundant storage and zone redundant storage. You can see that durability increased from 11 nines to 12 nines. Availability for read and write is same, which is 99.9. And number of copies, as we say, there are 3 copies, but in the first case, they are in single region. In the second case, in the separate availability zone within a single region. So next one we are going to talk is geo-redundant storage. So as we have seen in the local redundant storage, we have 3 copies in the same region. So what happens in geo-redundant storage? We create a secondary region. So same kind of 3 copies are created in secondary region as a local redundant storage. So we are talking about total 6 copies. And then there is a asynchronous geo replication is enabled. So whatever is happening in primary region, that data is asynchronously copied into the secondary region, and in the secondary region itself you have 3 copies. So you're talking about total 6 copies here, and they are in different region. So even if the full one region is down, then the second region has your copy. So it increases the durability of this even further. Let's see the numbers. So this is the one we are talking about, geo redundant storage. If you can see, in local redundant we have 11 nines, which was 12 nines in zone redundant, but now in geo redundant it increased drastically to 16 nines, which is a pretty big increase. And availability for read request, it is 99.9 for normal geo redundant storage. There is another option which is called RAGRS, read access geo redundant storage. So in that case, Azure enable your application to read data from the secondary region as well. So you have 2 options to read data. You can read from primary and you can read from secondary. If we enable that options, then the availability for read even increases from 99.9 to 99.99. That is called RAGRS. So write availability stays same, which is 99.9 for all of these 3. And number of copies, now as we discussed, it has 6 copies total, 3 in the primary region and 3 in the secondary region. So let's go and see the final type, which is called geo zone redundant storage. So this is more or less same as geo redundant storage like we saw, but only difference here is in the primary region, instead of keeping data into local redundant storage that is in the same data center, it is split into different availability zone. So if you see, this is as zone redundant storage in the primary region and local redundant storage in the secondary region, and then those are connected with geo replication. So this gives you 6 copies. This gives you assurance that even if one region is down, then the other region is available. And within the primary region, if one availability zone is down or 2 availability zones are down, your data is there in separate availability zone. So this is called geo zone redundant storage. So let's see the numbers. So if you see that numbers for this are pretty much same to geo redundant storage, same as zero redundant storage, you have read access option also there, that is called read access geo zone redundant storage, and the numbers for that is also same. And if you look at the bottom, it says 6 copies total, 3 across separate availability zone in primary region and 3 local redundant copy in the secondary region. So it's pretty much same, but for high availability applications where a lot more reliability, durability is needed, it is recommended to have a zone geo redundant storage. So that is recommended. Even though Microsoft Azure is guaranteeing the same number, that is 16 nines and 99.9 or 90.99, but having the data copied into separate availability zone is recommended in this kind of setup for critical applications. So this is the summary, and the things which are same I have marked in the same color, so for easy reading. As you can see, let's see about type of storage. So storage account types and usage. So we now learned about redundancy options, and there are more types of storage account. As you can see, first one is standard general purpose V2. So this is the most common type of storage account. It supports block storage, Azure files, queue and table storage, and redundancy options. It provides a lot of redundancy options: local redundant storage, geo redundant storage, zone redundant storage, and local zone redundant storage. As we saw, it provides all of those options it provides. And the usage, it is standard storage account for blobs, file share, queue tables. It is recommended for most scenarios. Only thing is where NFS files share is there in Azure file, it is recommended to use primary file share account type. And then there are 3 premium storage type. One is block blobs, file share, and page blobs. So block blobs, it provides blob storage. Storage options are LRS and ZRS, and it's a premium storage account type for block and append blob only. You need to remember this. And because page blob, we have a dedicated another premium page blobs, and it is recommended for scenarios with high transaction rates or scenarios that use small objects or require consistent low storage latency. Then we have premium file share. This is specifically for Azure files. Again, it provides the same redundancy option, locally redundant and zone redundant, and recommended for enterprise or high performance scale application. It supports both SMB and NFS file shares. Then premium page blobs, it is for page blobs only, and it provides only local redundant storage, and this is used for page blobs as we mentioned. So there are two more types which are more like legacies, very rarely used, but there are some specific scenarios when those are used, and I have covered those here at the bottom. So one thing to remember here is local redundant storage. As you can see, I highlighted as green. It is available in all of these options. And zone redundant storage is available in the most which are used today, like general purpose V2 and premium block blobs and file share. You have zone redundant storage also there. And in the premium page blob is the special case where only local redundancies are allowed. And as we discussed already earlier, general purpose V2 is most commonly used for most scenarios, and it provides all type of redundancy options. So this is the one way of remembering this. And talking about the legacy standard general purpose V2, and it supports blob, it supports Azure and table storage, it supports blob, it supports queue and table storage, Azure files, and these are the redundancy option we have. And it may not have the latest feature on the lowest pricing, but it is used, like for example, but it is used for special cases. For example, the applications requires classic deployment model, which is not supported by the newer storage types, or your application is a very transaction sensitive and use significant geo replication bandwidth, but does not require large capacity. Then in that case, it's an economical choice. Or when you are using a Azure Storage REST API version older, which is like 2014 version, or client library version lower than 4x, then you can use this. And the legacy standard blob storage, it is for blob storage, block, blob, and append blob only. And it provides LRS, GRS, RAGRS redundancy option. So it's there, it is supported, but it is highly recommended to use standard general purpose V2 account whenever possible. So this is all about it. Hope this is helpful. Thanks for watching.